Hello everyone, my name is Justin Igliscus, and today we're going to be speaking on the top structure to increase your daily productivity and efficiency. So really what this all comes under is the idea of seeing in a structural and a organized perspective to make everything that you know you need and want to do simple and clear. So one of the most practical ways, right? We'll jump right into a practical quote unquote system, but when I use the word system, I use it gently because I want you to take the structure here and create your own system, make it unique, make it work for you. But the structure is having just a simple physical weekly planner. And you can do digital too, if that's really where you lean. But for me, I like to have things written down, tangible, physical. So just to my left of me, I always have a clipboard, and it's essentially a template for my weekly planner. And I have it organized in a way where it's just boxes, and there are 3 weeks on each side of each paper. And with that being said, it's just broken down Monday through Sunday, each day, and then AM, afternoon, and PM within each day. And then I have a ideas section below the Monday through Sunday boxes. And then that's just repeated 3 times to conserve physical paper, for the environment. Because, right, this is holistic, and therefore we consider the environment. But really what this allows me to do is each week, right, we get thoughts, we get ideas. And I used to fall into such a deadly trap of getting overly excited and then rushing myself, like feeling as if I have to get that idea or that action finished so quickly after having it pop into my mind. So now the way that this really gets powerful is it's up to you whether you carry a notebook everywhere you go, but for me, I just use my phone as that notebook. And you can use the Notes app or text yourself. So when you get insights, when you get ideas, exciting thoughts within your day, just shoot yourself a text message, literally to the number that your phone is, put that number in, text yourself, and then each week you compile the valuable text those ideas, and you don't want them to just sit there and disappear or be forgotten. So you transfer them into the ideas section on the physical weekly planner. And then naturally throughout time, you'll, throw an idea into one of your days. Let's say, right, you work Monday through Thursday and you work 8-hour shifts, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you do have some time. Some additional time, some spare time. All you have to do, take something that you texted yourself or a random idea that got itself onto this weekly planner, and you transfer that over to your Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And then whether you get that done or not, that's where we don't want to judge ourselves. Don't be too harsh on yourself. The whole point of having the weekly planner is not to become this hyperachiever who's like, check that, check that, check that. Sure, it's nice to cross off some boxes, check some boxes, but the purpose is for clarity. The purpose is for simplicity. How can we make it so that our psychological space is more free? And therefore, if we're wasting energy trying to remember ideas when we could just get the insight once, the idea, and write it down, and then when the time comes, due to knowing you have a streamlined pipeline system, that the actions will get done inevitably. And of course, so that's like the practical aspect to it. But psychologically, there's a lot more to having clarity. psychologically, there's a lot more that goes into how to increase your daily moment to moment productivity and efficiency. And psychologically, the simplest way to start is number one, a structural perspective, a bird's eye view, but also looking in a minimalist perspective. Now, I'm not saying, go to an extreme here. I'm just saying there is value within the structure of the minimalist perspective. So, when we're talking about the psychology behind simplicity and clarity and how simplicity and clarity lead to productivity and increased efficiency, right? That's how it works. You don't just grab productivity or grab efficiency. You see things clearly and simply, and that allows for effortless decision making, rather than debating over something which is a trivial, very shallow decision. With clarity, you make that choice instantly. It's not even like a thought. So when we get into this, we look at what are the things which might be slowing me down? And you might not know, but just from my personal journey, there are some simple structures. And if you're consuming food, if your nutrition is not aligned, it's processed food, that's going to be adding to your mental fog and deleting your clarity, removing your clarity. So what we want to do there is just use a simple rule of thumb, which is if it has more than 5 ingredients, it should probably only be consumed on your end 5 to 15% of the time. You know what I mean? So 85 to 90% of your nutrition should be less than 5 ingredients. The exception would be like a homemade chicken pot pie, where you have peas, chicken broth, etc., etc. But all those ingredients are simple, right? Chicken broth, peas, So if you're making a soup, it can have more than 5 ingredients. Just make sure the soup ingredients itself are whole foods, not processed, So that's the simplest rule of thumb. And paired with that on the nutritional end is hitting your body weight in grams of protein. Because as you have healthy protein and fats, your physiological structures are going to have energy, but you're also psychologically going to have clarity because you're consuming high quality food, and therefore you're also, while consuming high quality food, dissipating the likelihood, so lowering the likelihood that you're going to have urges for processed food. So it's always a full circle, well, most of the time. When we're accurate, you'll start to see multiple connections, and that full circle sort of nature invite itself into the picture. So we have nutrition down, right? And then the next thing is to figure out what time of the day that you're going to consistently exercise. Because we're talking about your bird's eye view psychology right now. And when you have healthy nutrition that's simple and you get your intense exercise in, whether it's in the morning or at night or in the middle of the day, that's up to you. But what we want to see clearly here is that you will be doing the highest level of productivity and efficiency within psychological output when your stomach isn't busy digesting food. So therefore, how I like to run things, and maybe you could take the structure and make it work for your personal preferences, but the way I like to run things is we start the day and immediately, after just a bit of stretching and easing into the morning naturally, then I'm not rushing, but I'm going either to jujitsu or to the gym early in the morning, either 4:30 for the gym, 4:30 to 5, get there, or jiu-jitsu starts at 6. And the point is, so I'm waking up and I'm not eating, just having water, maybe coffee after being awake for an hour. And then it's really so simple as you do that intense workout, you hydrate, then you have clarity after that. your body isn't busy digesting, but you got that sweat going on, psychologically you're going to be clearer after getting a sweat going on. And your body's not digesting food. And so you've also gotten high quality rest and sleep. So that's another pillar, which is simple, right? It's just whatever. If you need 7:30 or 8 or 9, for me it's like 8 to 9. But your fundamentals, these are what build your foundation to clarity. And with clarity, you're naturally going to become more efficient and more productive, especially when you conserve that energy that you would otherwise waste trying to remember these ideas that you'll have on the weekly planner. So, you create that weekly planner. It doesn't have to be like timed. It's just general. It's structure. AM, afternoon, PM. What actions would I like to get done? And of course, once you get some things consistent, you don't need to put them on the planner. The planner is not for this dopamine, this satisfaction, this self, when you're just satisfying yourself by checking off boxes. That's just not at all the point. The point is really to just conserve your energy where it would otherwise be wasted. So that perspective, right? The reason I go into the simple fundamentals is because this always is going to come back to your energy, your levels of clarity, and the energy that you have to build and maintain that clarity. So, right, we have nutrition, we have our sleep, we have our exercise. When all of that's simple, then you'll start to have the energy to truly do the most important thing, which is going to feed into your productivity and efficiency. That most important thing is really, it's subtle in a way, but it's also obvious. And it all comes down to observing your moment-to-moment living in terms of, am I flexing my gut because I'm holding in anger? Did my sister say something that triggered me to start thinking bad, and then now I'm going down a slippery slope of thought and emotion, which, has no return on investment at all? What I'm talking about here is we do all the fundamentals, we get productive, we are efficient, so that we can play the true game of living a life founded upon meditation. A life where you're not living in a reactionary state, but this mind which is sharp and aware due to the fundamentals which leave you with an excess of energy, and then throughout doing the work, your relationship to this energy becomes more clear. You start to be more sensitive about how your gut works and the way that emotions and trauma, if you want to use that label, will get blocked up inside of you. You can literally begin to feel all blockages within your being, whether it's within the mind or within the physical body. And it's such a gift. It's such a gift that all of us have. And it's more than beautiful. It's just beyond words when you begin to live this life where you're sensitive of what's moving through you. Because the fact is, right, you've heard this idea, this quote, which is that we have many grown children living in adult bodies. Like, it's just the lack of awareness of the fact of what we are, energy at the core, the inefficiency on so many humans' ends in relationship to their awareness of their own energy, their emotions, and their thoughts. If you'll do this work, if you will observe what is moving through you, the friction, the tension, the violence, and when I use violence, I mean thinking in terms of judging others, right? Because someone will do something in traffic. Maybe you'll have to slam on your brakes. And then the instant reaction is this friction. It's this rage. It feels as if, things may be boiling, but there's a whole nother way to live where you see that instantly. And then it's no longer a boil, right? Because when I use the word boil, what are we physiologically? We're mostly water, like 70% plus water. So it makes sense, and you can see it, you can feel it, that so many humans are boiling inside constantly. And I mean, that's not the way to live, but don't believe me when I say that. I'm just saying that my life used to be like that. I was boiling all the time. And now I live in a way where, like, if there's ever a boil, it's seen instantly. And then that boil naturally brings itself down to just a cool temperature. And I know so many of us are just living in just a constant violence, a turmoil, whether it's created by fear or anger or confusion or insecurity or greed. It can be built from so many different specifics, but the specifics don't necessarily matter because the structure is continuously the same. The structure is continuously simple. And it's really that if we will watch and see the implications, the branch-like effects of our emotions and our thoughts, we use this gift. We start to realize we're not the clouds in the sky, we're the sky behind the clouds. And that the thoughts and the emotions are the clouds, but we can observe the moving. As the sky, you can see that there are clouds in the sky. As you being awareness, you can see your egos or your sense of self or the I, the me, the Justin, all of his emotions and thoughts running. You can see that. And if you do the work, if you really watch it, if you observe it, you'll see life. You'll see everything more clearly. And with that clarity, you'll remove stress. You'll gain a confidence which is beyond a shallow level of confidence, right? Like a true confidence, a confidence which allows you to be so vulnerable because you're unmovable, really. And it's just one step at a time, but this work, this 24/7, this constant meditation, the use of the ability to observe and hear and listen, it's your guide. It's literally your guide. It's the wisest intelligence, the river of life, speaking to you if you'll just observe your egotistical reactions, which come in the vehicle of thought and emotion. So all that being said, I write daily, probably like 5-minute reads, 3-minute reads. They're nice. They're not too short. They're not too long. Just right. What's that? Goldilocks. Porridge. Just right. I digress, but if you're on YouTube, it'll be in the description. Same thing for if you're on the podcast. In the description, you'll also get a free 4-part video masterclass on creating clarity, on everything that I speak about here. So, if you enjoy deeply, I'd appreciate a like, a rating on the podcast, a comment. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you. Let's go. I'll be here. Let's go.